if Vladimir Putin and those who are supporting him don't pay a price for this kind of aggression, it will be, in fact, precisely what you hypothesized in your second question to me, which is it will begin the decline of a centralized Western understanding of the world. It will have rewarded thugocracy. It will have rewarded this kind of activity. If he were to get precisely with the list you just ticked off, I think were the things he was demanding before this war, before this aggression, were he to get 100% of his aspirational objectives, even if he doesn't get all the way to the full toppling of the Ukrainian government itself, if he gets 90% or 95% of what he was looking for, and the costs on his country he knows will be temporary, this will be a bad sign for the world and a green light to others like him.
One Nixon example would be the way in which Nixon and Kissinger handled the 1973 crisis when Israel was attacked by Egypt and Syria, robustly mobilized in order to put hard power in the way, and ultimately forced a diplomatic resolution where we were center stage and did not allow the Soviets to take credit for acting as a peacemaker.
I was with President Nixon in the early 1990s. The wall had come down, the Soviet Union had collapsed, and Nixon saw a providential opportunity for the United States to lead an effort by the West for something akin to a new Marshall Plan, which saw the rescue of Europe after World War II. And he realized there were budgetary constraints and political constraints, but he was really making a very passionate case for the West, led by the United States, to get in at the ground level with this fledgling Russian democracy. And he laid out a whole array of options for us, but he did want to make sure that the West was doing everything it could in order to lock in the incremental gains we saw after the fall of the Soviet Union with regard to representative democracy, but also free market capitalism. And his warning was that if the West did not step up and do enough, that Russia would be lost for generations, and we would see the rise of a new despotism. That was his phrase, a new despotism. So he actually foresaw the rise of Vladimir Putin and, in fact, the invasion of Ukraine, which unfortunately we're seeing today. So once again, President Nixon, incredibly prescient and correct as usual.
Well, I think that my grandfather was a very unique president for many reasons, but he also visited Russia. And in 1972, during the summit, he made a point to go out and visit the people in Russia. He wanted to actually meet people. And I remember growing up, he would say whenever he went to China or Russia or some other place, he always said, I'd rather the Secret Service not be around. I'd rather not have my security detail around. I want to meet the people of the countries that he visited. And that was something that was very important to him. And I think that this is something that we must keep in mind as well as we move forward, is that we're not fighting against the Russian people. We're fighting against an evil leadership that is driving these poor people to do terrible things. And you look at these poor soldiers that are, many of them being captured by the Ukrainians, and they say, we don't know why we're here. These are our Orthodox brothers. Why are we attacking them? We didn't think we'd be attacking them. So I think you have to understand, what it is that the people of these countries want. And I think that ultimately the solution to this is that, enough pressure has to be put on Putin so that his own people don't want him in power anymore, whether that's the people around him, the generals around him, his inner circle, and the pressure that they'll be getting from the street, the people who are protesting in the Russian street. We have to understand what drives them, because ultimately they're going to be the ones that take Putin out of power. And then on the flip side, I think we have to look at Ukraine. This whole Ukrainian story is going to come down to the Ukrainian people and how much they're willing to sacrifice, whether they're going to want to put their lives on the line for months and months and months on end. If they don't have the will, then this isn't going to be a war that's going to end well for the West. But I think that they do have the will. And I think that that's something that my grandfather would certainly look towards, is how eager are they to fight? And I think that we're going to see that they are. And that's what's going to cause Putin problems.